I thought my wife just liked pizza. But those empty boxes piling up near the trash, they told a different story, one I couldn't ignore. Megan had quit her job about 6 months earlier. She said she was burned out, that her last boss was impossible to work for, and that it was time to find herself. I didn't fight it. I made enough to cover the bills, and I figured she deserved a break. She promised she'd spend more time at home, handle things while I worked late hours at the firm. It sounded fair. Cooking was never her strong suit. When we first got married, I handled most of the meals. But as my workload grew, we started eating out more. Megan leaned on food delivery, which was fine. I didn't think much of it, until I started noticing just how often pizza was showing up in our lives. At first, it was once a week. Not a big deal. There's a little Italian place on the corner, family-run, really good pies. I liked it. But soon, pizza nights turned into pizza afternoons too. I'd come home and see a half-eaten box sitting on the counter, another tossed in the trash. One evening, I walked past the dumpsters behind our building and saw at least 3 pizza boxes crammed inside. I thought it was just one bad week. Maybe she'd had cravings. But when it kept happening, I asked her about it. "Megan," I said, trying to sound casual, "do you really order pizza that much? We've talked about eating healthier." She laughed it off, kissed me on the cheek. "Yeah, I know, Ryan. It's comfort food, I guess. Won't happen again." But it did. The next week, the boxes were back. One day, I even found a box with slices still in it, shoved near the building's trash bins. It bugged me, not just because it wasn't healthy, but because it didn't make sense. If she didn't finish the pizza, why order it daily? I decided not to nag her. No point starting an argument over takeout. But the thought stuck in my head. Every time I walked home, I'd glance at the bins, and sure enough, there they were. Empty boxes, receipts tucked inside, my own apartment number printed clearly on the labels. One night, after a long shift, I stopped by the corner pizzeria. I wanted to see if maybe they had a punch card or something. I thought if Megan was buying this much, we might as well get a discount. The place was small, warm, smelled like fresh dough and melted cheese. A guy behind the counter greeted me. "Hey there. Big night for pizza." I smiled politely. "Yeah, actually, I think my wife's been ordering from you a lot. Thought I'd check it out myself." His face lit up. "Oh yeah? Apartment 3B, right?" I froze for half a second, but nodded. "Yeah, that's us." "Man, you guys are keeping us busy," he said cheerfully. "Every day, sometimes twice. Glad you love our stuff." "Twice a day?" My stomach sank. I played it cool. "Yeah, it's great. By the way, last time, I didn't have cash for a tip. Any chance I could catch your delivery guy? Make it up to him?" The guy nodded. "Sure thing. Luca's out on a run. Should be back in 10. I pretended to browse the menu while I waited. Eventually, a young man came in, dark hair, tan skin, slim build. The kind of guy who looked like he belonged in a Vespa commercial. This was Luca. I stepped forward. "Hey, you delivered to 3B the other day, right?" He looked uncertain, but nodded. "Yeah, I think so." I handed him a folded bill. "Sorry I missed tipping you last time." He smiled, pocketed the cash. "No problem, man. Thanks." I didn't say I was the husband. Didn't want to spook him. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. It wasn't just pizza cravings. This was every day, sometimes twice. And the delivery guy? Luca didn't look like someone who'd just drop food and leave. The next day, I made an excuse at work, left during lunch, and parked across from our building. Around noon, Luca showed up with his insulated bag. I expected him to be in and out in under a minute. He wasn't. 10 minutes passed. 15. 20. When he finally left, his hair was a little messy, his shirt slightly untucked. I wanted to believe I was imagining things. But the next day, I watched again. Same pattern. By the third day, I wasn't just suspicious. I was certain. I told myself I needed to know for sure. That guessing wouldn't cut it. So I planned it out. Wait for Luca to show up, give him a few minutes, then walk in like I'd just gotten home early. What I didn't expect was just how much that moment would change everything. I left work early on a Thursday. Megan thought I had a late meeting, but I'd arranged my schedule to get out before noon. I parked a block away from our building and waited, watching the corner of the street. Sure enough, about 30 minutes later, Luca's little hatchback pulled up. He strolled into the building with his delivery bag slung over one shoulder like he owned the place. I let him get upstairs, counted to 300 in my head, and then went in. My heart pounded the whole way up the stairwell. When I reached our apartment door, it was quiet. I didn't hear talking, no music, no TV. But when I tried the handle, it was unlocked. That was unusual. Megan was always paranoid about keeping it locked, even when she was home. I stepped inside slowly. The living room looked normal. There was a pizza box on the coffee table, open, a couple of slices missing. I heard movement down the hall. "Megan," I called out, forcing my voice to sound casual. There was a quick shuffle of footsteps. A door slammed. A moment later, Megan appeared from our bedroom, adjusting her hair and pulling her sweater tight around her shoulders. "Ryan, what are you doing home?" she asked, eyes wide. "I forgot something for work." I lied, scanning the hallway. "Figured I'd grab lunch with you." She smiled a little too quickly. "That's sweet. I just ordered pizza." I nodded, stepped past her toward the bedroom. Her body stiffened as I reached for the doorknob. Before she could say anything, I swung it open. Lucas stood there, awkwardly holding his delivery bag, looking like a deer caught in headlights. His shirt was wrinkled, and his face turned pale when he saw me. The anger that had been simmering inside me for weeks boiled over. "What the hell is this?" I said, my voice sharp. Megan rushed forward. "Ryan, it's not what you think." "Not what I think." I cut her off, stepping toward Luca. "This guy's delivering more than pizza to my wife, and you think I wouldn't notice?" Lucas stammered. "I should go." He tried to squeeze past me, but I blocked him. "You've been coming here every day, haven't you?" I demanded. "Every damn day." He swallowed hard, but didn't answer. I moved aside just enough for him to slip out. As the door shut behind him, I turned to Megan. She wasn't crying. She wasn't apologizing. She just looked annoyed. "So this is what you've been doing while I work 10-hour days?" I asked, my voice quieter now but heavy with anger. Megan crossed her arms. "You're never home, Ryan. I'm stuck here alone all the time. Lucas, he's nice to me." "Nice to you?" I repeated, incredulous. "He's a delivery guy sneaking into our apartment while I'm busting my back to pay the bills. That's what you call nice." She glared at me. "You don't get it. You're always gone. When you are here, you're too tired to talk, too tired to do anything." I felt invisible. I shook my head, laughing bitterly. "So instead of telling me that, you order pizza and start an affair in my own home? You couldn't even pick a new place to eat. You had to do it with the guy delivering it?" She opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand to stop her. "Save it. I'm done." Her face changed then, the bravado slipping. "Ryan, what are you saying?" I walked to the closet, grabbed a suitcase, and tossed it on the bed. "I'm saying this marriage is over. You're not getting a second chance. I'll call a lawyer tomorrow." She stared at me, stunned. "You can't just throw everything away like this." I zipped the bag shut, my hands shaking but steady enough to make my point. "You already did." That night, I slept in a hotel. Megan texted a few times, asking me to talk, but I ignored it. The next morning, I called an attorney. Megan still thought she had leverage. She thought since she'd been out of work for months, I'd have to support her. But what she didn't know was that our condo was mine, bought before we ever married. The law was on my side. While I focused on the divorce papers, Megan tried to call Luca. I knew because I saw the messages on the phone bill when I checked later. But Luca wasn't answering. From what I heard around the neighborhood, he'd quit the pizza shop and disappeared. For once, I wasn't angry about that. I almost pitied him. Almost. What I cared about was making sure Megan couldn't drag me down with her. The morning after I contacted the lawyer, everything started moving fast. Megan had finally grasped that I wasn't bluffing. She tried to call me repeatedly, and when I ignored her, she showed up at my hotel. She stood outside my room door, knocking and pleading for me to talk. I opened the door just enough to face her. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. "Ryan, can we please talk? Just us." I stayed calm. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It was a mistake. I was lonely. Luca meant nothing." I cut her off. "You brought him into my home. You did it for weeks. That's not a mistake, Megan. That's a decision." Her lip trembled, but I didn't see regret in her eyes. I saw fear. Fear of what came next. "I'll fight this," she whispered. I almost laughed. "Fight what? The condo? I owned it before we got married. You're not touching it. And I've already told my lawyer I'm not paying spousal support. You're healthy, young, and capable of working. You'll be fine." Her face hardened. She realized her usual tactics wouldn't work. She stormed off without another word. Over the next few days, Megan tried a different approach. She posted carefully worded messages on social media, making herself look like the victim of a cold, unfeeling husband. A few mutual friends reached out to me, asking if it was true that I had abandoned her. I told them everything, how I found her with Luca, how it had been going on for weeks. The messages of sympathy to her stopped quickly after that. Meanwhile, I focused on gathering every document my lawyer needed. Mortgage papers, bank records, even texts where Megan admitted she wasn't working or contributing financially. The case was looking clear-cut. No shared property, no spousal support. One afternoon, while collecting things from the condo, Megan tried one last attempt at reconciliation. She followed me from room to room, talking rapidly. "I can change, Ryan. We can go to counseling. I'll stop ordering out. I'll start cooking. We'll have dinner like a normal couple again." I shook my head, not even pausing while packing my clothes. "Megan, you've said a lot of things in this marriage. I believed you every time. I'm not making that mistake again." She grabbed my arm then, desperation in her grip. "You can't just throw away 5 years over one stupid thing." I looked at her, finally letting my anger show. "One stupid thing? Megan, you made a fool out of me. In my own home. With a pizza delivery guy you didn't even bother hiding. You threw us away. All I'm doing is taking out the trash." Her hand dropped, and for the first time, she didn't have a comeback. The divorce hearings went smoothly for me. Megan's lawyer tried to argue for support, claiming she'd sacrificed her career for the marriage. My attorney countered with her recent infidelity, the fact that she'd voluntarily quit her job, and that we had no joint assets. The judge sided with me on every point. When it was over, Megan had to leave the condo within 30 days. She didn't have savings, and Luca was long gone. She ended up moving in with a friend on the other side of town. I stayed in the condo, alone but strangely peaceful. No more late-night pizza deliveries, no more empty boxes by the trash bins. I started cooking simple meals for myself, nothing fancy, but at least it was honest food. One evening, a month after the divorce finalized, I walked past the pizzeria on the corner. The same guy who'd recognized my apartment number saw me through the window. He waved sheepishly. I went inside. "Hey," he said, looking uncomfortable. "About all that stuff before, we didn't know what was going on. Thought you were just a big fan of our pizza." I smiled faintly. "Not your fault, but I'll stick to salads for a while." He chuckled nervously, and I left without ordering. Life felt quiet again, peaceful. But sometimes, when I passed the dumpsters behind our building and saw old pizza boxes tossed there, I'd stop for a moment. And I'd remember how close I came to missing all the signs, how easily trust can crumble over something as small as a delivery bag and a few slices of pizza. This time, I promised myself I wouldn't ignore the little things. Weeks passed after the divorce was finalized. Megan was gone, and for the first time in years, the apartment felt like mine again. No tension, no quiet arguments over takeout or my work hours, just silence. Peaceful silence. I thought that was the end of it. But trouble has a way of finding you, even after you think you've escaped it. One evening, as I came home from work, a neighbor stopped me near the mailboxes. Mrs. Harris, a sweet older lady from the 3rd floor, looked hesitant as she approached. "Ryan, dear," she said softly. "I don't mean to stir up anything, but I saw Megan hanging around the building earlier this week. Is everything all right?" I frowned. "Hanging around? Doing what?" "She was by the dumpsters, of all places," Mrs. Harris whispered like it was a scandal. "Looked like she was waiting for someone. I thought maybe she was trying to see you." I thanked her and went upstairs, my mind churning. Megan had no reason to be near the condo anymore, and she wasn't supposed to be on the property. I wondered if she was desperate for money, or worse, trying to cause problems. The next day, I left work early and waited in my car across the street. Sure enough, just after noon, Megan appeared. She lingered by the side of the building, phone in hand, glancing around nervously. A few minutes later, a familiar car rolled up. Luca. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, watching them talk. Megan gestured wildly, pointing toward the building, then toward the street. Luca shook his head, clearly annoyed. After a heated exchange, Megan stomped away, leaving Luca standing there alone. I didn't know what they'd said, but it was obvious their little fling hadn't blossomed into some great romance. Maybe she wanted him back, maybe she needed help. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. Or so I thought. 2 nights later, I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. My heart pounded as I pushed it open, half expecting a break-in. Inside, nothing seemed stolen. But on the kitchen counter, there was a pizza box. Fresh, still warm. I hadn't ordered it. I checked every room, but the place was empty. Whoever had left it was long gone. I called the pizzeria, asking if they'd delivered to my address. The manager said yes. A woman had called in the order, paid in cash. I didn't need to ask her name. I already knew. The next morning, I filed a police report and changed the locks. I made it clear to the building manager that Megan was no longer allowed inside. But that wasn't enough. I needed to end this completely, make sure she couldn't keep sneaking back into my life. I set up cameras inside and outside the condo. Small ones, barely noticeable. For a week, nothing happened. Then one afternoon, while I was at work, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. There she was, Megan, trying the door, frustrated when her key no longer worked. She left after a few minutes, but not before muttering something to herself that the camera barely caught. He owes me. That night, I met with my lawyer again. I thought this was over, I told him. But she won't leave me alone. He nodded. We'll file a restraining order. She has no claim to the property and no right to be here. We moved fast. Within days, the order was in place. Megan was officially barred from coming near the condo or contacting me. I thought Luca might try something next, but from what I gathered, he'd moved on. Word around the neighborhood was he'd taken a delivery job in another part of town. He wasn't looking to stir up trouble. Megan, on the other hand, had burned every bridge. No job, no place of her own, no friends willing to host her long-term. The little stunt with Luca had cost her everything. And me? I finally felt like I had my life back. The cameras stayed up for a while, just in case, but no more alerts came through. The pizza boxes were gone for good. I started running again, cooking healthier meals, even taking time off work to clear my head. For the first time in years, I wasn't living under a cloud of lies and quiet betrayal. One night, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights. I thought about how it all started, with something as small as a delivery bag and a few empty pizza boxes. People always say infidelity leaves obvious clues, late nights, secretive texts, changes in behavior. But for me, it was cardboard boxes by a dumpster that told the real story. And those boxes were never coming back. By the time the restraining order took effect, Megan had stopped trying to contact me, at least directly. I hadn't heard her voice, hadn't seen her face in weeks. But every now and then, I'd hear from someone else, an old friend, a neighbor, even my cousin in another city, who'd mention Megan trying to tell her side of the story. She'd spun it as abandonment. According to her, I'd thrown her out without warning, left her homeless after she sacrificed her job to build our marriage. She left out the part where she'd been cheating with a pizza delivery guy, sneaking him into our apartment while I worked. People believed me when they heard the truth. I had the texts, the lawyer's filings, even witness statements from neighbors who'd seen Luca hanging around. Megan's story fell apart quickly, and soon, even the whispers stopped. But one evening, as I was heading out for groceries, I saw Luca, not on a delivery run. He was sitting outside the same corner pizzeria where it had all started, smoking a cigarette. He looked older somehow, more worn out than the last time I'd seen him. He spotted me and froze, like he wasn't sure if I'd punch him or walk away. I walked over. "Ryan," he said cautiously. "Luca." We stood there for a moment, the smell of baked dough drifting out the pizzeria door. Finally, he spoke. "Look, I didn't mean for all that to happen," he said. "It started small. She flirted when I brought her food. I didn't even know she was married at first." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't know?" "She was wearing a wedding ring." He shrugged helplessly. "I figured you weren't around, maybe separated." By the time I knew the truth, I was caught up. I crossed my arms. "And still showing up every day." "Yeah," he admitted, looking down. "But after you caught us, I quit. I didn't want to mess with it anymore. I'm out of delivery now, trying to do something else." For a moment, I almost pitied him. He wasn't the mastermind, just a willing accomplice to Megan's betrayal. "I'm not going to fight you," I said finally, "but stay out of my life. No more deliveries, no more showing up near my building." He nodded quickly. "You won't see me again." I believed him. That night, back at home, I sat in my quiet kitchen, staring at the empty table where Megan used to sit, scrolling her phone while we ate. I thought about how many chances I'd given her during our marriage. Every late night, every excuse, every little thing I overlooked because I trusted her. And what had it come down to? Pizza boxes. I hadn't seen it at first. I thought she was just settling into life without a job, leaning on takeout because she couldn't cook. I thought she was waiting for me at home because she loved me, not because she had someone else keeping her company while I paid for everything. That realization was like a switch flipping in my head. I'd been blind for too long, but not anymore. The divorce was behind me. The restraining order was in place. Luca was gone. And Megan, well, Megan had burned every chance she had. A month later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Megan had tried moving in with Luca, but he'd shut her out. With no steady income and no place to go, she bounced between friends' couches until they, too, got tired of her drama. Eventually, she left town. I didn't feel triumphant hearing it. There was no victory dance, no celebration. Just relief. I'd kept the condo, my job, my sanity. She'd lost everything she'd tried to manipulate and keep. That was enough. On my next grocery run, I walked past the pizzeria without even glancing inside. No reason to. That part of my life was over. But as I dropped my groceries on the counter later that night, I noticed something. For the first time in years, the kitchen smelled like home-cooked food, not melted cheese and cardboard. And for once, that smell didn't remind me of betrayal. It reminded me of freedom. It had been nearly 6 months since Megan walked out of my life for good. The divorce, the restraining order, the rumors she'd tried to spread, it was all behind me now. Life had settled into something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Every morning I woke up without tension sitting heavy on my chest. No more wondering if Megan was lying about where she'd been or why she suddenly had errands that lasted hours. No more finding pizza boxes stacked by the dumpster while pretending not to notice. I didn't have to pretend anymore. I'd kept the condo, fixed it up, and made it truly mine. Repainted the bedroom, replaced the furniture Megan always said we couldn't afford to change, and even built a small home office to handle my work without staying late every night. I started cooking, nothing fancy, but enough to remind myself I didn't need takeout to survive. One evening, as I cooked dinner, my phone buzzed with a message from an old friend. Saw Megan last week. She's working part-time at a diner outside the city, living in a cheap rental. She looked rough. I stared at the message for a moment. There was a time when news like that would have torn me apart. Back when I thought I had to save her, when I believed every apology she gave, when I thought marriage meant fixing someone else's mistakes at the expense of my own happiness. But now, I just set the phone down and stirred the pot on the stove. Megan had made her choices. She'd quit her job, leaned on me financially, and when I worked harder to keep us afloat, she found comfort in someone else's arms. She'd done it in my home, day after day, thinking I was too blind or too trusting to notice. She'd underestimated me. I didn't shout, didn't beg, didn't try to win her back. I just walked away and took everything with me, because it was mine to begin with. That was something Megan never understood. You can cheat, you can lie, but you can't fake respect. And without respect, there's no marriage left to save. Weeks later, as summer rolled in, I found myself sitting on the balcony with a glass of whiskey, looking out over the city. Down below, the little pizzeria on the corner still bustled every night. People laughed as they carried boxes out to their cars. I hadn't stepped inside since the day I ran into Luca, and I never would again. Not because I hated pizza now, but because every time I saw those red and white boxes, I remembered how they'd started stacking up, unnoticed at first, then louder than words ever could be. It was strange how something so small could unravel an entire marriage. Not a big scandal, not some elaborate lie, just pizza deliveries. Little clues leading to a truth that changed everything. I thought about all the men out there, coming home late from work, ignoring the signs, believing excuses, thinking it's just stress or routine. I thought about how easy it is to miss the obvious when you love someone. But I didn't miss it. Not completely. And as I leaned back in my chair, the evening breeze cutting through the warmth, I realized something else. Losing Megan wasn't a tragedy. It was freedom. The last slice of betrayal had been thrown out with those pizza boxes months ago. And as far as I was concerned, that chapter was sealed, done, and buried, just like her place in my life. From now on, my dinners were mine, my home was mine, and my future? Mine too. And not a single delivery bag could ever take that away again.